Hey, what's up, comrades? Hope you're all doing well. We're on to our next set of Bond stories and events. So this one, no one was really introduced in Chapter 3 that we ever need to talk about. And this third event, Miracle of Snow, is kind of a big one. And it focuses on two characters we haven't talked about at all in it. And this is where we kind of first get these alternative costumes for characters. So the main two characters are Anne and Ruby. And Ruby, we're not going to talk about her. We're going to talk about her Bond story with her new costume, because it's like sometimes what Nikke does is you have these characters, and then they'll have like an alternative version of that character, and it's an alternative. It's the same person, they just have like different equipment and stats and yada 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 yada, right? And so, Ruby, I think it's Ruby, like Indian Ruby, is she plays a predominant role later on in the story, so we're not going to do her Bond story. But Anne, she has her original form, which is like a SR form, and then her SSR form, which is Anne Miracle Fairy. So we're going to talk about Anne before the event, and then the Bond stories for the Rupee and our Holiday Shopper and Anne Miracle Fairy, because we'll be introduced to them during the event story, which is pretty long. All right, so that's the plan. So to start off with, Anne is not called Anne initially. You get to find that out through the Bond story. She's initially called N102. And so N102's situation is that she wakes up, she doesn't have any memory of anything. She reads her notebook to see what her day is like, what her plan is. And it's a favorite thing. She's going to go eat croquettes. She's going to go play a crane game, get her favorite toy, and then she's going to go to a bookstore, get her favorite bookmarks. And so as she's walking out, we run into her. And we're like, hey, Anne, what's up? And she's like, just keeps walking. Like, she has no idea who we are. She doesn't know that's her name, any of that stuff. And so we have to stop her. And then eventually we're like, hey, you call me teacher. We're friends. We hang out and stuff. And she's like, okay. So then we join her. We go do all the favorite things. We do croquettes. She loves that. We get the pink bookmarks. And then I think it's a cat from the crane machine at the arcade. And it's a great day. Then like her alarm goes off, says time to go. And she says bye. And then the next day she wakes up, and this time her notebook says slightly different things. It's like, get a hot croquette, get like a blue, or get like a different kind of animal from the crane machine, and then get a blue bookmark, because those are your favorite. And she's like, those are my favorite things. And then again, she comes out, we bump into her again. We're like, hey, Anne, what's up? And she just keeps walking, and we like introduce ourselves again, and then we go through the day and do the exact same thing, only with like the slight modifications. At this point, after we say goodbye for the evening, we reach out to Rappy, and we're like, hey, is there anybody who knows a lot about Nikke and memory issues or anything like that? And Rappy mentions Exia is well-versed in these things. So after we contact her, this is where I find, this is where it's like N102 is Anne, and that she's a member of a research in, it's an R&R, research in, I don't know. Anyway, research squad for Missilis, and that she specifically is they're doing research on how the nymph affects Nikke memory. So what is the nymph? So the nymph, and it's capital NIMPH. I can't remember exactly what it stands for right now. It comes up later in the story, so we'll get more into it. But the gist of it is the nymph is what allows it has to do with how the brain functions and the ability for Nikkes to like not have fear in the face of raptures, and it does a whole bunch of stuff. But it's this thing that's kind of internal. It becomes like a kind of a main component of like the main story. But that's why it's important for memories, because it has to do with the brain interaction with the bodies and transference of stuff and all that good stuff. So apparently, Exia fills us in that they're wiping Anne's memory every day and swapping out what she likes, just to kind of as part of this experiment. And Exia, who loves research and is kind of like a cold person, she's like, even for her, this is kind of like crossing the line. And so we determined that we're going to give Anne/N102 memories that she'll never forget. So the next day, same process. She has new stuff in her notebook, but then when we meet her, we're like, we're not going to do any of that stuff. We're going to do the stuff we did on the first day, because that's the stuff she actually likes, and we know that because we've done this multiple times with her. And at first she's like horrified, but then we take her notebook and we write Trust Teacher, which is the name for us that she has, and then she's like, oh, okay, and she calms down. So we go through the whole day, and at the end of the day, we get a message from NS2BA2, who's the researcher, the scientist who's kind of conducting the experiments with Anne, and he commands us to cease contact. So we go back and forth, call him like a monster. He tells us that we're messing up this stuff and that we don't know what we're talking about, and we fight and fight. And then we separate the communications without coming to like a firm conclusion. So the next day when we run into Anne, she like is very horrified by us, and the notebook says like, don't trust teacher. Right? And so the scientist contacts us and is like, aha, I beat you, suck it. But then we're able to convince her we're not a bad person by having her look in our eyes and she feels like a sense of warmth, and then we take her hand and she feels great, and then we have a day. The next day, Anne doesn't show up at all. We reach out, the scientist sends us the coordinates to this lab where Anne is just sitting there muttering like a broken record. And the reason why is because they took the notebook away completely. So without the notebook, she can't recall anything. She can't remember her name, anything she likes, anything at all. She's just kind of like freaking out. So we approach her and we tell her that whatever, even if she can't remember, we'll remember for her, and that she doesn't actually need the notebook. And we get her to trust us. Now this goes on for about 12 days. And after those 12 days of just doing the same thing we did on the first day and reaching and going to the lab and comforting her and taking her out and doing the things she likes and repeat. The scientist contacts us and says like, hey, whatever, man, you'll eventually get bored. You can't be doing this every day or whatever. But eventually, going back to Anne, she is sitting there and she starts to remember us as well as the things that she loves, the mild croquettes, the pink bookmarks and all that stuff, even without the notebook. And then we go get her and she tells us about this and she's super excited and we're super excited, and then she like collapses and passes out. Later on, she's in bed and a notebook is slid through the gap in the door, and it's from the scientist, and he says because of all this stuff that we interfered with, the experiment's been shut down and he's gone with his job. And that he hopes that we as the commander can help her build new memories and fill up her diary with all these things. So at this point now she's living in the outpost with us and with the counters and everyone, and we're all hanging out. And then we get a cute scene where everyone's eating croquettes and that she loves the mild croquettes. And then she's playing board games with Ines and she's going shooting with Neon, and everyone's having a great time. And she's, that evening, kind of the story wraps up with her writing in her journal about how happy she is and how joyful she is and how she looks forward to things every day. And then, runs into us and is like, I hope we can continue to make joyful memories together. And that's where it wraps up. Miracle Snow is the third event, and it's the first big major event. When I say major event, the first two events have been, you get like 12 story bits and then like an ending after like a hard mode of play. But with these major events, you have like a whole different like kind of 3D map looking thing, and you can wander around. They usually have a mini game. They'll have like part 1, part 2, and then hard mode, and then they'll have like you can like find stuff throughout the map just like you would like a regular map. So the story of Miracle Snow starts off with Anderson and Nikke. Nikke is the AI that kind of runs the arc. She's shady as fuck, but we don't get that here. They're just meeting about resources. All the CEOs are there too. Ingrid, Sayun, and not Tetra, Mustang. And they're talking about how they don't have enough resources and how there's an issue with water. And Ingrid specifically mentions Missilus has a fault with that Missilus is at fault because of their new boiler system. There's also concern about the length of event and the unequal treatment of people and like where they're going to host and all this stuff. Mustang steps in and points out, he's like, here on this map, that's where we should have it. And everyone's like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Nikke's concern is that it's outside the ARC's jurisdiction, but everyone seems to be like, you know what, that's fine. We can trust it. We can have it over there. So once everyone's okay, we learn that it's the outpost and that there is an amusement park at the outpost. That and the outpost, if you remember, is where we got banished to. A lot of stuff happens over there. A lot of Nikkes come visit. So everyone can go to this area because it's safe, because it's full of Nikkes who are always on patrol, as well as us, like the commander. And so what they're gonna do is they're gonna create artificial snow for 2 weeks, and this is the first time in over 15 years that they've been able to celebrate like a Christmas with snow. As all the humans leave, like all the CEOs, Anderson wishes Nikke a Merry Christmas. We switch over to Rupee. So Rupee, we're not going to get into too much. We're going to do her Bond story after this for the special Rupee in this, but she plays a role in the main story. So we'll deal with her Bond story when we get to like the intermission of that story chapter. But what you need to know about her is that she belongs to a squad that is all based around money. So you have Rupee, which is like Indian money. You have Dala, obviously. And then you have yen, which is that, right? And that they're all very oriented towards making money. Rupee's particular thing is that the important thing to know is that she's a streamer, and that she's like a real life streamer. She just like shops and has like little adventures and streams, and she's got a whole bunch of simps that she calls lupins, and then she's got haters as well. Okay, so she's out at the amusement park, talking to her Lupins, doing her streaming business, talking about the snow, and that announcing that she'll be dressing up like Santa Claus, and that she's going to go out and interview people with us, the commander, and everyone is familiar with us because of the previous Bond story, which we're not getting into right now. I apologize, it's a little random. She also has a bag with random questions. So what's going to happen is we're going to go interview people, ask how they're doing, ask how Christmas is going, and then we're going to pull a question, ask them a question, and then they're going to get a reward, which is in another bag. So we wander around the park and we see a lot of Nikkes riding rides, participating in events, doing all this stuff. We look for people to interview. We run into members of Sweet Cafe who are, as previously noted with Neon's Bond story, completely insane. And they're all doing crazy things. Sugar is riding her motorcycle on a merry-go-round. Milk is literally chasing cars. And Freema is sleeping. Now, we haven't gotten to them and their Bond stories. I mean, they've popped up twice because they're relevant later on. Okay. So that's all you really know about them for now and what we talked about. So Rupee questions at that point, after talking to all those crazy chicas, Rupee's like, I don't know, maybe this is a bad idea. At this point, Anne, or N102, steps up. This is why we talked about her and her Bond story before this. Rupee is super excited to have like a normal person. And then we're like, we introduce her to Anne. Anne is super excited to answer a question. But when Rupee pulls out the question, she gets very concerned. It states, what did you do last Christmas? And since we informed Rupee that Anne cannot remember, the day before, she gets like super concerned. We suggest that she pulls another question, but before Rupee can reach in and grab another one, Anne picks at it, grabs at it, and says, "Oh, I was sleeping." She informs us that anytime she was told that anytime she can't remember something, it's because she was asleep. Good stuff. So because she answered the question, she gets a prize. So she pulls the one out that is the One Wish Pass, and Rupee mentions that this is not just the SSR. It's the SSSR class gift. It's the number one gift because Rupee will do anything in her power, everything in her power to grant one wish to whoever pulls that. So essentially, Anne gets whatever she wants. Ruby's a little upset that it's so early in the stream and because it is the best gift, and she was wishing it was be saved for last, but here we go. Anne wishes for everyone to be happy this Christmas. Rupee at this point is like, the fuck are we gonna do that? And we, the commander, say, let's just go spread Christmas cheer. And Ruby's like, oh, okay, yeah, we can do that. Anne, you want to come with us? And you can be like a little Christmas fairy while I'm Santa Claus. And Anne loves the idea, so she joins up. Ruby's going to live stream the whole thing, so she mentions that to us later on that she's going to make a video for Anne so she can always remember this Christmas, which is very sweet thing for her to do because Ruby is a very sweet Nikke. So first thing we do is we head to the arcade where it seems that people are pretty happy already. She points out there's a big group of people playing a game, and we head over. There's Exia again. We'll get to later when she's more relevant. She's pretty relevant in this story, but she's not one of the main characters. She's wearing a Rudolph costume, and she's dominating at this live event of this video game that she's always playing. And if you don't remember, she's kind of like a hacker Nikke, but she's obsessed with this video game, and she's always playing it. And so she showed up because normally she would not show up, and she wore a costume because part of getting an exclusive mount is being and it's like the only one on the server. She has to show up to this place in costume and win this PvP match. And so she's pretty stoked because she's dominating everybody. So she's super happy. So, okay. So we go to find someone who's not happy. And at that point, Anne notices Maiden. Maiden is another Nikke that we're not going to discuss here because she plays a major role later on in the main story. But she's kind of wild. She's also a super nerd like Exia. They're not in the same squad, but she's super sad. And so Anne offers to help. We kind of say that like, she likes being sad. Don't worry about it. Which is not wholly true, but the reason Maiden is sad is because her work schedule did not allow her to get ready for the gaming competition, and she left her controller at home because she can play with the mouse and keyboard, but she doesn't want to do that. She wants to play with her controller, and so Anne really wants to go get it, but it would be too late, and the competition would be over. At this point, Ruby's follows mention that they can just expedite a controller over, and at that point, Maiden's like, "If you're going to do that, can I get the limited edition Christmas controller?" And the less people are willing to do that, but she does find one of her Lupins to express it over. And in return, they're going to get like a signed scarf from Rupee, one of her special scarves. So at that point, Sugar just rolls up with the controller like almost instantaneously. And they're like, oh, I thought you were doing this merry-go-round thing. And she's like, it was getting boring. I tried to race all the horses and shit on the merry-go-round, but it was always ties, so whatever. Maiden's thrilled and heads over to play against Exia. She gets absolutely destroyed but still happy because she gets to keep the special edition Christmas controller. And so, victory, we made her happy. At this point, everyone is tired, and Anne says, let's meet it the next day, and then runs off. Rupi is super concerned because of Anne's memory issues. And she mentions that she'll show her the video, and we can keep making people happy, and we head off. The next day arrives, and Rupi is very, very nervous. But Anne runs up, and she remembers everything from the day before. Rupi is confused, but, rolls with it. Why not? We take Anne she takes Anne, and they go change into their Christmas costumes. So at this point, we get Anne Miracle Fairy and Rupi Christmas Shopper, which is they're the new Nikkes you can utilize in combat. So when it works with this, so you can purchase costumes, and the costumes will just be the same. So if Rupi has another costume, like the character in the game, she will still have all the same powers, same abilities, same everything. So but then they do these kind of like alternative versions, which is what this is. So both N102 gets like her SSR variant, because normally N102 is just a SR. And then Rupi's already SSR, just gets another variant using like a different weapon and having different abilities. All right. So that's what these events are about, right? They're releasing these new characters and whatnot. Okay. All right. So Anne is psyched with this new costume. She runs around while Rupi tells us that she made the costumes the night before and that she really wanted to surprise Anne. And, again, Rupi is a very sweet person, so she's doing a lot of sweet things, being very nice. So they take a picture and they start the live stream and we head off. We go and we stuff ourselves with sweets, and at that point we run into Polly and Miranda. And they're part of the police Nikkes. They're the ACUPU. Again, we'll get to them later when they're more relevant in the story. But they let us know that apparently a lot of people are just losing their sense of taste, and they're here trying to figure it out because they tracked down people complaining. They all were here at the amusement park. So they're trying to figure out why or what's causing them to lose their sense of taste so they can solve the issue. And we decide we're going to help because that falls under Christmas cheer. If people can't taste things, they're going to be sad. So we go to all the different vendors eating to see if anyone loses their sense of taste. No one does. And at that point, Anne notices that someone's handing out homemade cookies. And we look over and we find that the problem is Emma. So who's Emma? Emma is another Nikke that we'll get to later. Probably in the next interlude after chapter 4. And the important thing to know about her is that she's very sweet, very loving. She is such a bad cook, people will literally die eating her food because it just is like horrendous. And so the problem is she makes these really nice cookies and she's a banger of a looker, but her cookies are causing people to lose their sense of taste. So we contact Polly, who mentions that there's a cure. It's to wait an hour or to eat some chocolate and drink a carbonated beverage. She's saying that they're swamped, and so they can't send us any of their stuff. Rupi at this point asks what we're going to do, and we state that we're going to open a booth next to Emma and that everyone after you eat the cookies is going to come over. And then we start getting donations from Rupi's followers, from Lupin's, but it doesn't look like it's going to be enough because like Emma's really like drawing people in with her like charm and good looks. At that point, Sugar just shows up again with several pallets full of chocolate and carbonated drinks, and they're all sent from Rupi's squad. They're sent from Dala and Yan, who were watching the stream, and they wanted to help spread Christmas cheer and to give Anne the best Christmas ever. Oh, that's so sweet. Don't worry, it gets dark. So Rupi and us, we're super grateful, and after wishing them Merry Christmas, we prepare for the battle against Emma's cookie stand. So as time goes by, Emma gives out cookies, Anne intercepts, gives chocolate and carbonated drinks, and everyone's doing great. And then once everyone's gone, Emma talks about how we did such a great team that we should do this again. And Ruby's like, ugh, I really don't want to do that. At that point, Emma introduces herself to Anne, and they hug, with Anne mentioning that her body is warm and cuddly. We get a chance here to be like, I know, or to be like, oh, I know nothing about that, which Rupi gives us a stink eye if we're like, yes. Oh, yeah, she's definitely warm and cuddly. And then Ruby's like, what? Because the Rupi, the Bond stories, and we'll get to that later when we do her Rupi holiday shopper, she views this as her, like, what's interesting, because, like, in the English, it says boyfriend, but in the Japanese, it's big brother. Anyway. I tend to go with that because English translation on these early events tends to be kind of bad. Anyway, so Emma gives Anne some cookies before leaving, and Anne mentions that she loves them and she doesn't lose her sense of taste. Oh. At that point, Anne's like super tired, and we decide let's meet up the next day and continue our adventure. The next morning, Anne's a little late because her tummy hurts, but she still remembers everything, which is great. So we check on her health. She mentions feeling fine besides the stomach issue, and we ask her to let us know if anything is bothering her. We then skip ahead a little bit, and we're on the surface, and we're heading somewhere. And Anne's like, over here. We then go back about 4 hours, and there's a mass-produced Nikke who is sad. So Anne pesters her, and she's like, "Leave me alone." And we find out that this mass-produced Nikke, 15 years ago, was her last memory, and that's the last time we had Christmas and snow in the Ark and all that. And she remembers sitting with her family and by the Christmas tree and all that stuff. And now they're all dead. Yep, told you to get dark. So she's very sad because this Christmas time reminds her of the last time she was like happy and not a Nikke. And so Anne says, "We're going to go get you a tree and we're going to decorate it and it's going to be awesome." Like a real tree from the surface, not a fake tree like they have in the Ark. She doesn't believe it, but we tell her that we're going to go get it. We're going to head to the surface right now. So we do. We go, and that's why we're on the surface. We get a tree, we bring it back, and the mass-produced Nikke is completely speechless, but very, very happy. At that point, we discuss ending the stream and grabbing some food when Anne notices that Anne is not happy. Why is Anne not happy? We talk to her, try to encourage her, open up. We're all friends. And after some kind of prodding, she mentions that her true wish is not to make everyone happy, but it's to meet her mom. And that Anne recalls the image of her mother, and that her mother is full of love and warmth. But she also gets an image of a woman who is tired and stressed out. We take this information to Exia. Anne goes home and Ruby and whatnot. So we take this information to Exia, who calls us a noob, and then informs us about why Nikkes usually don't have memories of their families. So both mass-produced Nikke and Anne are kind of like anomalies. So this does happen, but there's a reason why. And the reason why Nikkes usually don't remember their families is because when they remember their families, it usually causes them to kill themselves. And this goes back to what we were doing about Nikkes, right? Like they want to feel like they're human. They want to feel like themselves. They like their idolized version. But when you start bringing things in where their family is like going to reject them, or they just don't feel human, they'll have like a mind switch, or they'll kill themselves because they can't stand it. And like the human brain is just not strong enough necessarily to cope with like a complete change of like who an individual is while still believing that they're there and they're their full idolized self. So that being said, it's not illegal to meet one's family or to, sometimes I do remember, sometimes stuff gets brought up. But there was a policy developed to erase all the memories of a family when a woman becomes a Nikke because they would kill themselves. And it just kind of keeps them safe, keeps the family safe. Everyone's like on the same page. At that point, Exia suggests that we speak to Sayun, as Anne remembering her mother could be a serious issue to Anne's existence and killing herself. So we have the discussion with Rupi, and she decides that, yes, we need to take Anne to Missless headquarters. And then we both swear that if Sayun tries to do anything crazy like harm Anne, that we'll stop her. Over at the Missless headquarters, Sayun does a test as we requested to check on Anne, partially because she's like, well, I want to make sure it's not out of like the kindness of her heart because it's Sayun, but it's because like I don't need like a Nikke killing herself or going crazy or doing anything on my watch, right? Because she's a missless Nikke, so it's for the stock prices and shareholders and stuff. She doesn't need like a defective unit running around. The results come back and it's fine. There's just a temporary malfunction with the nymph, which is kind of like how the brain and everything is kind of controlled with the body, and there's a lot of stuff going on there with the nymph. She mentions that the nymph is a very mysterious thing, and that no one really knows where it came from, and also that it self heals, and that because it's only a kind of a temporary minor malfunction with Anne's nymph, that it's going to cure itself. And then she's like, "No, get the fuck out of here." Ruby thanks Sayun for giving her a cake for a Christmas gift, and Sayun's like, I don't know about that, and she just kind of leaves it on the table. And then we're about to leave, but then we turn around, the commander, we turn around and ask about Anne's mom. Sayun is shocked, since usually Nikkes kill themselves after meeting their family, that we would want to jeopardize a Nikke, because we already have a reputation for being very like pro-Nikke. But we insist. Ruby and Anne are off playing with the cat when we come up and we inform Anne about her mother, that her mother's still around and that we have an address. Ruby asks Anne again if she really wants to meet her mom. And confesses that we have this information. So we told Rupi, and then Rupi tells Anne. Anne is reluctant, as she does not want Rupi and the commander to be sad if Anne gets sad. But then we turn around and we know, let's go check this out. And that we'll be together, we'll always be together, and we'll be friends. So we'll take care of if anything happens. So we go. And we get there, no one's home. Anne and Rupi are talking about waiting while we, as the commander, go get some drinks and snacks. And right as we turn, we bump into Angelina. Angelina is Anne's mother. She asks if we're there. She essentially, what does she say exactly? She says, "Oh, I need more time. Wait, are you Miss Liz? What? No, I need more time. I'm almost ready. And then at that point, she notices Anne, and then she's like, Anne? And then Anne's like, Mom? And then Angelina's like, I can't do this. And she runs off. So we go to chase after her when we get a call from Sayun. And then at that point, she mentions, hey, I did some digging, and I found that Angelina is the one who requested that Anne become a Nikke. Oh, so maybe she feels guilty about the whole situation. But we're pretty shocked about finding that out. And then we end the conversation with Sayun because we lost Angelina, and then we head back to the girls. Anne's super shaken up, but trying to hold it together because, she saw her mom, and then her mom, peaced out. Rupi mentions that her mom probably left to go get a Christmas present, which Anne is like, you think so? And then Rupi, being the sweetheart that she is, she's like, how about you come have a sleepover with me and we can sleep together tonight so that you're not alone? And Anne's like, yes, please. So Anne agrees, and Ruby gives us a look that is like, hey, you need to go figure out what the fuck's going on with Angelina. And then she takes Anne and heads out. We wander around the Ark for a while, why? We just wandered around. But at that point, we reach out to Exia, who does her little hacker thing, and finds that Angelina does not have a job listed, but that she has a very strange pattern of behavior where she spends about 4 hours at her house, and the rest of the day is going to the same places at the same time every single day throughout the week, which is very odd. But she's able to give us a specific path that we can catch her and see her at the same time, same place every day. So the first place we go to is this burger joint that she'll be at. Rupi meets us there, stating that Anna's already asleep at her place. And we see Angelina, who waves at someone, then continues her walk. We decide to follow her, and after several hours, we find that she just kind of meanders about and does some crazy stuff. After several hours, Angelina slows down, and we call out to her. She realizes that we're not from this list, but gets mad for trying to connect her with Anne because of what is going to happen, quote unquote. Rupi and her argue for a bit before we stop it. We tell her that we are Anne's commander and that we want them to meet. We discuss how Anne has remembered her, even though she shouldn't be able to, and that her memory could go any minute, and that so she should take that time and spend it with her daughter and not, be such a coward or whatever. So at that point, she's like, well, I can give you 30 minutes. So we head back to her place. And then she's got to get back to making money. Her place is very small and cramped. It's just a bed. She's clearly very poor. And then she tells us about Anne's past. So when Anne was 10, she developed an issue with her brain. And it was overwhelming her so much that eventually, the English says, it's essentially she would be taking 30 high-definition pictures every second of every day of everything around her. So it was an information overload. So she was taking on way too much information. It was overloading her brain, and that the doctor said it would eventually kill her. The only solution they could come up with is maybe if we turn it into a Nikke, that stuff won't carry over, which worked for a bit, but then the anomaly came back. So the new solution was to do memory wipes every day. Angelina would visit her, but this started causing problems. According to the doctors, they said that it caused problems with the equipment, and that it led to Anne self-harming herself. And so because of that, Angelina couldn't be with her every day anymore. And Angelina then was like, okay. And then they also told her at Miss Liz that she would have to pay for the memory wipes because there's no way they would pay for them themselves. And they're very expensive. So she has to avoid Anne and pay for all the memory wipes. At that point, she sends us away so she can rest before she gets her money going. We then get a montage of her day, and it is terrible. Seems like a really terrible sacrifice. So she starts off the day, cleans a public bathroom, then she goes to a restaurant, then she goes to another food job, more cleaning jobs. She eats what her employers give her for sustenance, and that's what she does every day. And then eventually she gets home and she just passes out for 4 hours. After we see that montage, after we talk to her, we bust into Sayun's office because Miss Liz charging a family member to do memory wipes on a Nikke so that they can live is completely unethical and fucked up. So we're like, hell no. So we bust into Rem's office after we run past Rem, who's her assistant, and with Ruby, and demand an answer for why Sayun's extorting Angelina, especially because this is such a powerful corporation. Why the fuck would they need to do that? Sayun, who's eating Ruby's cake and enjoying it, is like, oh, get this away. And then she's like, the fuck are you talking about? I have no idea about any of this stuff. And she's like, hold on, shut up. And she makes a call, and the call is pretty hilarious. She calls the R&R department, which is the squad that Anne's in, and she's the only one. And then it's pretty much her just being like, hey, who's in charge of this? Fire all of them. Fire them all, and then make sure no one ever hires them again, and then sue them. And then it's like, what? Do you think that's too intense? Fine. Hire what's it, Absolute? And deport them from the Ark. Oh, Perilous Siege. Get Perilous Siege in here. Call Ingrid and tell them I need Perilous Siege to kill them. Because Perilous Siege is It's D and the other Nikke hasn't come out, but she's been in the store. I'm trying to remember. It's like D and F, they're assassins. And then she's like, compensate Angela, give her all the money that was taken from her plus some. And then she hangs up the phone and she's like, I'm so sorry. This incident could besmirch Miss Alyssa's good name. That is not how we operate. These are like rogue scientists who are just being assholes and treating this woman like shit. This is not how we operate at all. The memory wipes are free. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't know why they would say that. So I don't want anyone to know about this. So what do you need me to do? And so Rupi demands that Miss Liz do a checkup on Angelina to make sure that she's healthy and that Anne continues to get what she needs, like memorize. So Anne's like, yeah, that's fine. I don't care. We also learn that there is no reason why Anne and her brother can't meet. So there was no self-harming. There was no damage to equipment. All that stuff that was all bullshit. So Rupi is celebrating our victory. And then we mention, like, hey, I don't know. Everything's hard. And this is a dark game at the dark world. This seems way too fucking easy to get like a happy ending. At that point, we go meet up with Angelina and inform her what occurred. So, and then we're like, yeah, you can meet with Anne again. And she's very hesitant. She's like, and we mentioned like, we knew it was too easy. So then Ruby's like, what's going on? Tell us what's bothering you. And then we see another day after day. We see another past with Angelina visiting Anne day after day after day after day. And then every day is exactly the same because Anne does not remember. She's like, oh, hi, ma'am. How's it going? And she's like, I'm your mom. And Anne's like, my mother? And then, it's like, oh, okay. And then she's like, oh, okay, mom. And then, it goes like that. And then the same thing happens the next day and the next day. And she doesn't remember anything. And she's got to keep looking at her notebook. And it's like the mom's just like psychologically tapped out. So after 2 years of doing that and just being like emotionally just devastated by this, the corrupt guys are like, oh, hey, you can't see her anymore. You have to pay for the treatments. And Angela, it shows her being like, oh, okay, good. I have to go. I would rather work myself to death than have this emotional burden, which is an interesting, very insightful thing because your emotional health is much more important than your physical health because it has a much greater tax on it. Now, granted, if you like blow your legs off or whatever, then you're going to have like, some emotional burden based on that. But most people, it's like the anxiety, the stress causes more physical damage, and physical damage is causing to your emotional health. And so the fact that she was just, it's like she would rather be in a physical hardship than face like emotional pain, right? Because physically she's not in pain. So there you go. So it's very good. And just the burden of that, it's just like she welcomed the excuse. And so Rupi chides her, and then Angelina like snaps back. It's like, you don't know what it's like, some blah, 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 blah. And she goes on a pretty epic rant about not being able to take care of her daughter, saying she lives one day and then completely forgetting the next, and just like how hard it is, and you would never understand, you're not a mother, like the emotional turmoil and all this stuff. And so after she storms off, Rupi and I like discuss how intense it must be and how tough it must be for her. A week goes by and Anne is baking with Emma. States that the cookies are really good, better than hers. And they really are. After we test them, they're like, wow, Anne's cookies are really good. This is excellent. We then get a text from Anderson stating that there's about 2 hours left before the whole Christmas thing gets shut down. So like, live it up. So we talk about how great of a time we've had, and Ruby gets really emotional as Anne will probably forget everything. It's like crying and stuff. And then Anne goes to comfort Ruby, stating that she wrote everything down, but Ruby remains upset and runs off, saying that she'll meet up with us in a bit. And where did Rupi go? She went to yell at Angelina again. So Rupi just desperately pleads and finally convinces Angelina to meet with Anne one more time. And so as we're kind of standing around the park and things are starting to like, they're about to get shut down, Angelina shows up. So at that point, Anne and Angelina apologizes to Anne for not being the best mother ever. And Anne's like, no, you are the best mother ever. And then they hug, and it's like, oh, I'm going to tear up. It's like it's really sweet. And then she mentions that she's so happy and she's never been this happy, and that they both say they love each other, and they, all this stuff. I miss being your mother, and I miss you here, and all this stuff. It's pretty emotional. I'm not going to lie. And then the snow stops to fall. And right then, Anne forgets everything, turning back into N102. And while she's talking to Angelina, she's like, oh, ma'am, why are you crying? Right? And let me comfort you. You don't need to cry. It's okay. It's like, God. At that point, Angelina cries even harder. Bro. That's good. It's pretty good. That's pretty intense. We then skip ahead 3 days. And Anne has been out, like she passed out, I guess, after the snow stopped. And we're at Miss Liz headquarters with her mother and with Rupi, and we're talking to the mother. And Angelina's finally decided that she's like, you know what, I'm happy Anne's back in my life, and I can do this. Like, I want her in my life no matter what, and this time I'm going to stay. At this point, Anne comes out and states that Anne's awake. Anne comes out, and Angelina's like, all right, I'm ready for this. Let's do this. And Anne's like, Mom! And runs over and hugs her. And Angelina's like, the fuck? Like, what happened? Because she's supposed to lose her memory. And we're all stunned. We're like, what? And then Ruby or Anne's like, come on, let's go. And she takes Ruby's hand and her mom's hand and they run off. And then we're like, Seiyun, what's going on? She's like, I don't fucking know. But all the memories, so she explains, like, it's a nymph. The nymph is crazy. I don't know anything about it. But somehow all the memories she had while the snow falling was occurring over the last couple of weeks, they were like locked in like a black box. And then they were integrated into the nymph. So even though part of her nymph is that she, like, when the memory is wiped, she doesn't like forget how to like use the bathroom and how to function and how to shoot a weapon and all that stuff, right? So those just that 2-week period of memories got like integrated into the nymph to a point where it's just part of like how she functions. So she's never going to forget it ever. And it kind of relates back to like her bond story. There are some times she's able to like push memories into like long-term memory that even with the memory wipes won't get wiped out. And so the vault is so secure that no memory wipes will ever affect that part of her brain. And so she can have her mom, and it's like a really sweet ending to like kind of like a real sad story we got. Thank goodness. Phew. So we thank Seiyun, and then she gets super flustered because she's tired of like people giving her gifts and like saying thank you. And she's like, whatever, get the fuck out of here. And as we're leaving, Anne calls to us, and we leave to enjoy like time with her and the snow miracle. The end. So now let's focus on our 2 new characters that we get from this event. Let's start with Anne Miracle Fairy. So her Bond story begins with her hanging out with the counters and us, the commander, watching a Christmas party presentation by Mustang, the CEO of Tetra. Neon and Ains during this point are discussing the event, discussing Christmas parties, discussing the whole seasonal stuff, everything that's happened. And then Anne starts questioning us about like what a Christmas party is, how it goes, whatever. And then we mentioned that Christmas time is a good time to get together with friends, to celebrate and to like enjoy each other's company, give gifts, all that stuff. And then Anne states that we should all have a party because we're friends, along with, we're her friends. Like Ruby's her friend, and then we're all her friends too. And then Ains is like, yes, let's do a party. At some point, someone mentions gifts, and Anne gets like really excited because she thought only the wealthy receive gifts. But no, it's like during Christmas time, everyone can get gifts. So we suggest like, hey, calm down. Let's just do something modest. And then the counters, because they come up with all these like grand schemes and whatnot, and the counters all agree to do it like tonight. And so at this point, they all run off to get gifts and supplies and set up the party and stuff. And they tell Anne to go with us. So that we can keep her entertained and get what's going on. So Anne really wants to get gifts for the counters, but doesn't know what to get. So we contact Santa and Rudolph for help. Santa being Emma and Rudolph being Exia. So Santa mentions that she's free now and that she'll bring Exia, she'll bring Rudolph with her. So we meet up at a cafe, and then Anne, asks him about getting gifts. Exia's like, let me look this up, and because she's like a super nerd, we haven't really gotten to her stuff, but she's like a hacker, always on her like tablet computer thingy, playing video games or like hacking stuff. So she gets like online and is looking up stats and everything, and she's like, you should give credits. That's the number one gift that is given. And so Emma's like, oh, sweetie, here, eat this cookie, and Exia does, and then passes out. Emma, who's Santa, then suggests that Anne gives gifts that match the personalities of each of the people be receiving. So then she talks about, oh, I think I should get Neon a toy gun, and Anne's like a 6-pack of beer. It's always soda in this version. Come on. And then she's like, no, I don't want to do that. That's stuff they already have. That's stuff that they already got. And that she'd like to do something more personal, something like the outfit that Ruby made for her for Christmas during Miracle Snow. So Emma suggests that she looks inside her heart to find the answers. And for Anne, that means look inside her notebook, which we stop. And we said, hey, now let's go look around. Let's try to figure out exactly what they want. That answer is not going to be in your notebook. At this point, Santa drags the unconscious Rudolph off, and we head out to try to get some ideas. We go to several places that Anne likes, like stationery store, a clothing store, and croquettes. And even after eating croquettes, she's very dismayed because she doesn't know exactly what she wants. She then notices one of the big like Christmas trees is still up, and there's a crowd gathering it. So we approach and find that it's Laplace. Laplace is gathering a crowd because she's replacing the star with herself because she's the shining hero. And then Anne's very entranced by the star, and she's like, I want that. And so Laplace is like, well, let's go get it. We'll go get it together. And so they head up to the tree, and she gets the star off the tree, and she's like, yes, I want to get stars to all the counters, to Ain's, Neon, and Rappy. And Laplace is like, she gets kind of sketchy because this is the last star. She's gotten rid of all the other stars so that she could be the shining hero. And she's like, and so Anna's a bit sad about this, but she's redetermined. She's like, no, I want to give stars. I'm going to find some other stars that we can give. So I'm going to do that. And Laplace is like a little bit like, okay, well, I got something to do. Okay, bye. And she takes off, which Anne kind of points out is like, she's being kind of weird. We return to the outpost, and surprise, surprise, this is like later on in the day, we return to the outpost, and we're surprised. The counters have set up a huge party. They got decorations, they got cake with candles, the whole shebang. And like, Anne's a bit overwhelmed until she blows out the candles and the cake, and then she's like, all right, let's do this. And so we party and chat and talk, and then it comes to the gift exchange. So the counters all got gifts for Anne. Neon got her a plushie with a gun, and it's a working gun, which Anne's like chasing her for. Ain's got her a pink notebook with croquettes on it, so she can have it to keep track of this stuff for the day and can remember stuff. And then Rappy got her a photo album with butterflies on it, blue butterflies, which is like her favorite thing. And at this point, Anne's very excited, and she pulls out a jar of star-shaped candies that we had helped her get, or we'd helped her gather together. And she tells the counters and us that we were like the special people in their life, and it's like a very touching moment, and it's all very sweet and stuff. At this point, Emma and Exia show up with gifts. They brought cookies, and Ain's is like, I don't know about that. But Exia mentions that, oh, don't worry, I fixed it, so no one's going to die. And he's just like, I just don't know. And then Exia gives out some Red Nose specials. Fun. Then all of a sudden, Laplace breaks through the window. She's got a giant golden sack full of giant stars that fall over the ground. She brought these stars. She went and got all the stars that she had taken off and gathered them up and brought them. So it's very sweet. And then, Laplace and Emma and Exhale get invited to have this party. We clean up and we continue to have this party. And Neon takes tons of pictures throughout the night for the party. The next morning, Anne, as usual, awakens. But this time she remembers her name and she remembers her friends, the counters and everyone else. But she doesn't remember. She remembers there was something that happened, but she doesn't remember all the details. And that's when she notices the photo album and the other gifts. And so she starts looking through the photo album and sees everything. And she remembers everything. She remembers like the great magical day, the wonderful day she had having this party, and she's so excited. And then she finds a letter at the end that we wrote, and it just talks about how memories are deep and they're always a part of us, even if we can't remember things. I, as the commander, can't always remember things either. And she gets super happy and teary-eyed, and she was running off to visit with us. And then when she shows up, she's like, I remember everything. I remember everything about the day, and it's a Christmas miracle, and it was a great miracle day. And that's the end of her Bond story. All right, we'll finish this up with Rupee Winter Shopper. So Rupee is very excited. She's having a stream where she's talking to all her simps, who she calls lupins, and all her antis, which are the people who hate watch her, about how she's going to pick up a present for her boyfriend, us. That's right. So some of these anti-watchers are telling her that they haven't seen a couple stream in a long time and that she probably paid us to go on a date with her, that we're not really together, and yada, yada, yada. And she ignores all the haters and heads off to set up this office space for a special present giving, this box opening. But unfortunately, we are stuck on the surface. So we head over to us and the counters. We're out on the surface doing surface bullshit. And we're watching the stream, and we're like, hey, is there any way we can get home tonight? And Rappy's like, no. Because she doesn't like getting cucked. No, but... But she shuts it down due to low visibility because of a dust storm, and it's not going to happen. So the stream ends up ending anticlimactically with no box opening because we're unable to get there and hang out and do anything we got to do. So later on, after we have returned to the outpost, we watch the VOD, the video on demand, of the sad end of the chat, and we see the sad end of the box opening event, and then we see all the chat, and then how Rupee hasn't posted all day or hasn't been online, and there's just a lot of concern from her simps. So we head over to the Royal Road because that's where she goes. She's a shopaholic, and when she's not. When she's sad, she likes to shop, and she's definitely been shopping because she spent 500 million credits and maxed out a credit card. We finally get her to stop, and she's super embarrassed about the whole situation and runs away. we head back to the outpost and try to figure out online how we can fix our relationship. There's like, find out what you did wrong. One of the suggestions is to write a letter, and one of the suggestions is to get intimate. Deciding being intimate might be a little too much, and that we already know what's wrong, we decide to write a letter. And so we start writing a letter, to which Irons and Neon get really nosy about and come up and start reading it and think it's an after action report, because us writing a love letter is absolutely not going to happen. And when they see that it's addressed to Rupi instead of Anderson, they get very concerned. So no letter. So the next step is intimacy. So we seek advice on how to do this. We go to a couple different people. We go to Sugar, who says you got to take it hard and take it fast. And then Signal, another Nikke, who says take it slow and steady. Later on the date, we discuss how we apologize for all the crazy schedule and everything, but now we're going to take her on a date and have a good time. So we take charge, which she likes, which all women like. And we take her to a flea market, and she just spends all this money on stuff, but she realizes like her money's barely going down because it's a flea market, so everything's really cheap. We're getting a bunch of like Christmas stuff and cute stuff like that. It's like past the season, but it's still good times. We then talk about how much different it is to be shopping at a flea market versus in a high-end boutique. Next up, we go to a shooting gallery, and she sees like this white Christmas tree that matches her outfit, so we win it for her. And then as time passes, she notices it's getting kind of late, and she's worried that she's taking us away from duties that we got to do. And we're like, no big deal. We're going to go eat. And she's like, where are we going to eat? I don't know any restaurants around here. And you're like, no, I got it. I'm going to take charge. And again, she's super impressed with our initiative. At this point, we feel like we've rebonded with Ruby to a point where we feel comfortable making a move. And the move is holding her hand, and she gets all cutesy about it. And like, oh my gosh, how about a hug or a kiss? And then she gets super embarrassed for asking. But then she gets what she wants. So good for her. During the dinner, we keep getting all these messages on our phone, so we check it out, and it's this the Ruby simps on her like stream chat are talking about how there's this other girl who trails her in views and stuff, this other streamer, and that she's released a video discrediting Ruby using the failed unboxing video. We show it to Ruby, and she's like, it's time to go to war, fuck that bitch. And so we're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's redo the present stream, and that can save the whole situation, because it's going to happen for real. So we head over, we set up the office again, and then we're about ready to start. She's like, all right, let's do this. So she starts the stream, and then we immediately mention that, oh, hey, we are not going to, I'm not going to open any presents because I've already received my present. And then all the simps are mad because we like obviously got the hidden presents before we were supposed to or whatnot. And then we're like, no, I already have the best present in the whole world, Rupee. And then everyone's like, aw. So then we hug it out, and that's the end of the stream. Later on, it's so cutesy. So later on, she contacts us and let us know that this Biatch streamer is losing subscribers in droves, and that her stream is very popular. I think she mentions like 500,000 views, which, to be honest, it doesn't seem like that much, but maybe it is. So then we invite her on another date. We've done this and we've done that, so let's go to the amusement park. And so we head there. And before we do that, though, she's like, I need some time. I got to do makeup. So good. It's perfect. It's exactly right. Bitches. Am I right, fellas? Perfect. Anyway, later at the amusement park, Ruby confesses that she's bothered somewhat by the comment about the streamer and about the relationship between a commander and Nikke. Because they never work out. And she makes the comment that one's always scrapped, killed, or dismissed. And that at that point we calm her fears and say, our future is ours to decide, and that we're going to be together as much as we want to be together, and yada, yada, yada. And then she gets all teary-eyed and happy, and then we're like, let's do this. So we go in for a kiss on the lips, and then Rupi like freaks out. And she's trying to figure out, I don't know, I'm freaking out. Should we take it slow? Should we take it fast? I don't know. And finally we kind of step in and we're like, maybe we should take it a little bit slow, but it's too late. because she's already decided and booked a hotel room on the Royal Road so that we can go enjoy some time together. And fuck. And so that's the end of event number 3 and all the kind of surrounding business to it. Yeah, Miracle Snow. Go ahead and like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys later. Bye.